So Marty Walsh is doing something that I think all of us should be paying close attention to here. Marty Walsh, he was my former mayor here in Boston right before we got Michelle Wu. He actually left that position early to work for Joe Biden as the labor secretary. That's how he left. Michelle Wu came in. Actually, we had an interim mayor there for a second, and then Michelle Wu was elected, right? What Marty Walsh was known for when he was mayor here in Boston is that he was really big on unions. So he was known as like this pro-union tough guy. He was also pro-police, which Sabby didn't like. But he was also, he was good on some issues, bad on others, right? So Marty Walsh also recognized, and I will give him credit for this, he recognized that there are a lot of young people that live in the Boston area. And some of the rules that were implemented under Mayor Menino, it was kind of starting to make Boston like this sleepy town, right? So Marty Walsh realized that you really need to amp up the nightlife and create more events so that young people have something to do in the city. And instead of graduating from these colleges here and moving to cities like New York or Philly or DC or LA that has this robust adult nightlife, why not just create that here? So he did implement a lot of things that I will say entertainment wise, I think were better for a lot of younger people in this city. He also was the one that pushed the T, which is our subway system here, to stay open later. He said, go out and vote with your feet. And we did. But unfortunately, due to budget cuts, that didn't last either. So for those who are not aware, our public transportation system is not 24 hours like a New York per se. And a lot of people in Boston don't own a car. But he did try. But right now, Marty Walsh is trying to do something that is really going to make me frown. I spoke to you a couple of days ago about the rail workers trying to decide if they wanted to go on strike. Now, you saw how quickly Joe Biden was able to respond to them, because if they are to go on strike, that will affect the supply chain, which will affect food traveling across this country, products being delivered across this country. So it is crucial that we do have them. As of today, they have still not reached a decision within their union. And that also means that they also have not decided whether or not they will go on strike. So now Marty Walsh is trying to intervene. Let's see what he wants to do. Here we go. Labor Secretary says Congress needs to block rail strikes without new deals. Now, hold on to your seats for this one, ladies and gentlemen. So I read this over the weekend. I'm going to make it a little bit larger for you. Yeah. Now you can take off your glasses. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh says he hopes negotiators between railroads and some rail unions can reach new labor deals and avert a possible strike. But he said without a deal, he expects Congress will step in and impose contracts on the unhappy rank and file union members. The statement is a blow to the union's leverage as they seek to win a contract that their membership will accept. Now, I want to ask you a question. Would you want to sign a contract that's implemented by our Congress? Would you trust our Congress to create a contract for your employment and you don't even work for Congress? Let's go on. 2 rail unions reached tentative labor deals with the railroads in September ahead of the strike deadline, only to have their membership vote against ratifying them. Now, this is coming from Marty Walsh. My goal is to get those unions back at the table with companies and get this thing done. He said a negotiated agreement would be the best thing we can do is to avoid any type of rail strike or slowdown. And see, this is actually what they're the most afraid of. I told you guys that this could be our segue into a general strike. If the railroad workers go on strike, they're probably going to put more pressure on to who, right? The truckers. Then if the truckers say, F that, I'm not doing extra work, they go on strike. This could be our way into a general strike. When you shut down the supply chain. That is the most effective way to do it. Because they have not reached an agreement, now Marty Walsh is trying to intervene and push them to reach an agreement. And if they don't, he is threatening to have Congress create a contract for them. I think this is a dangerous situation. I don't think the federal government should go to such lengths. And my advice to the rail workers, if any of them happen to see this segment, is to just go ahead and go on the damn strike. Go ahead and go on the damn strike. Go ahead and do it. Do it. Call their bluff. Because no one should sit here and intimidate you like this. So they went from being intimidated by their employer to now being intimidated by the labor secretary to possibly being intimidated by Congress. This has gone too far. So I would not be for this. I sincerely hope they are not for this. And I really would encourage them. And if any of you know any of them, I would encourage them and tell you to encourage them to go ahead and go on strike. Shut it down. Now, it goes on to say Walsh was involved in a 20-hour bargaining session that reached tentative labor deals just hours before a September 16 strike deadline. He said failing new negotiated agreements, Congress would have to impose a contract on the unions as a way to keep union members on the job. Let me highlight this. As a way to keep union members on the job. This is how they keep you as a slave to the system. This is how they keep you where you are. You see how they can just come in and just say, well, we're going to come up with a contract for you since you guys can't make an agreement. That way we keep you on your job. Do you see how this works? They can quit. Those of you who are working for the railroad company, you can quit. Don't ever let them make you think you have to stand there and you have to tolerate this. And I can tell you from experience, from talking to other people that have unionized and talking to people that have just walked off during their jobs in the middle of the day, I've seen both sides of this. There's always that intimidation. They'll either intimidate you or they'll say, oh, well, we'll just replace you with someone else. Well, why don't you go ahead and call their bluff? Go ahead and go on strike and let them try to replace you with someone else. And let's see how long those replacements last, because they're probably going to have the same complaints that these employees have. Call their bluff. Let's see how it goes. You have to stop allowing these oligarchs and our government making you a slave to the system. Now, it goes on to say, if for some reason one of the unions doesn't get to an agreement with the companies, then Congress will have to take action and avert a strike in our country. You see, this is why I'm telling you a general strike is more effective than actually trying to elect a progressive politician. Do you see how they want to react? Congress will have to take action to avert a strike because Congress does not want the supply chain to shut down. If you are a railroad worker, if you're a trucker, you have more power and more leverage than you may realize. You have the power. If you are in charge of the supply chain in this country, you can really decide what comes in and what goes out of this country. Remember that. Why beg with these politicians? Why beg with them? Why try to plead? You have the power in your hands. And I'm sure that, look, walk off. I'm pretty sure, they don't want to lose some of the benefits that they do have, and they don't want to lose their pay. But with all this time where they're still trying to decide, oh, are we going to make an agreement? Bump that, bro. Go get another job. You could probably get another job right now that's going to pay you more money. Leave them. Go. Just go in and say bye-bye. But I'm sorry, it's been a while. It's been a while and there's been no agreement made. One of those two unions, track maintenance workers who belong to the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division, is set to go on strike as soon as November 19th. Let's go ahead and mark that date there. Without a new deal, while the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen, could walk out as soon as December 4th. The BMWED members voted 57% against the proposed deal, while members of the Signalmen Union voted 60% against the deals. If any rail unions were to go on strike, all the rail unions, which together represent about 110,000 members, would honor their picket lines and refuse to work, bringing the nation's freight railroads to a grinding halt. That would be a body blow to the U.S. economy, snarling, still struggling supply chains and triggering widespread bottlenecks and shortages. And I'm going to say what they won't say right here. The country would be fucked. This is your general strike. And the federal government would respond quickly. You know why? Because if you don't have the supply chain, you don't have goods coming in. That's something that will actually affect them too, by the way. Not just working class people and poor people. That if you don't have the food coming in, that affects everybody. That's why I said just go ahead and do the strike and then tell them to come back to the table. When Joe Biden comes back to the table, tell him these are our demands. Might as well throw in some other things in there too while you're at it. Might as well go ahead and say, you know what? Also, by the way, we don't just want these benefits for ourselves. We don't just want better health insurance for ourselves. By the way, we think you need to give this to everybody in the United States. Then we'll talk. That's your general strike. That's your body blow for the win. About 30% of U.S. freight, when measured by weight and distance traveled, moves by rail. Prices of goods from gasoline to food to cars could soar if trains halt. In addition, factories could be forced to shut down temporarily due to part shortages. Goods that consumers want to buy during the holiday season could be missing from store shelves. Like I said, this would affect everyone. Walsh's statement, while unwelcome, was no surprise to Michael Baldwin, who's the president of the Signalmen Union. Many businesses and groups were urging Congress to act before the September 16th strike deadline. And two Republican senators, Roger Wicker of Mississippi and Richard Burr of North Carolina, had introduced legislation that would have imposed a contract on the unions. Republicans were prepared to pass something then. They have that ability. See what I mean? So it's not just the Democrats. But at the time, Democrats refused to act to block a potential strike. Senator Richard Durbin, the second highest ranking Democrat in the Senate, told CNN at the time that I don't think it's likely we will intervene. He's okay. I've heard them say that about other countries as well. How many times have I heard like politicians say, oh, we're not likely to intervene with that country? He said that avoiding a strike depends on the parties in negotiations stepping up to the plate. The Association of the American Railroads said it is counting on Congress to act if new deals can't be reached. No one wants a strike to happen. And everything we've done throughout this process has been focused on getting a deal done and avoiding even the threat of one. Should we be unable to reach ratified agreements, however, Congress has historically stepped in to avert a service interruption. 3 unions have yet to finish their own ratification votes, including 2 largest, which represent the engineers and conductors who make the 2-person crews on each train. And that article goes on even further there. But I do want to show you this picture here. You may see these trains sometimes when you're driving and you just see these trains that pass by and it's just nothing but freight. These are the trains we're referring to. This is the railroad, or these are the railroad workers I'm referring to, not the people who are working for Amtrak. It is very important that this moves. But will the strike happen? I don't know. We'll have to wait to see, but I sincerely hope that Congress will not create a contract for them. Because that contract, who knows, it could be half of what they're asking for. Half of it. I'm going to go to some of the comments here in the chat. Delthea says, you can be pro-union and still not be pro-labor. Not every union is for structural change. That's a good point, Delthea. Thank you for the super chat, Kim. Thank you for standing up for labor. Always, Kim, always. And JB says, want to bring the country to heel, cancel Christmas via a strike. Ooh, that's another one. That's another one. I've been saying for years, I think people should boycott Black Friday. But when I say this, people just look at me like, but that's when everything's on sale. I love Black Friday. And I've always kind of been like, are you really getting the best deal on Black Friday? According to the data, you're not.